Hey guys, Chris from Nichols Retirement Empire. I noticed a big increase in the number of people that were watching my Why Teachers Quit videos. I mean, a very large increase. And I was like, why is that? I was trying to figure it out. And then it occurred to me that the reason this is happening is because it's toward the end of the year. And this is when the kids are, at their worst, and the teachers are at their tiredest, and the parents are the most stressed and all this. So that's one thing. But the thing that I really think it is it's testing season. Testing. So today's video is about why do teachers quit? Testing. Now, why do kids go to school? In my opinion, they go to school to learn. Okay? Now, how do you know they learned? Well, forever and ever, we know that the way to tell if they learned is to test them, have them demonstrate somehow what they have learned. So always, testing is always a part, of education and teachers. In the past, we've always left it up to the teachers. You teach the class, you test the students, you determine whether or not they've learned it, to proficiency, and then, you give them a grade and they pass or fail. Now, what has happened over the last 30 years, 40 years, is the state has decided that, we're given the curriculum, so we need to know if they're learning the curriculum. We can't just depend on the teachers saying that they're learning, so we need to find out if they're learning. So they give tests, and all these different states give all kind of different tests, and they do it to find out, originally, are the kids learning? And then when that wasn't a lot of stress on anybody because the student didn't it didn't affect their grade. They just got feedback on what they had learned. It didn't affect the teachers, the teacher's job or their rating on their job performance or anything like that. It didn't affect the school. It'd make you look bad if your school scored really bad. But in general, it wasn't that big a deal. Well, so they decided what we need to do is start making it where the kids, if they fail this test or if they score bad enough on this test, well, maybe we should hold them back a grade. And that, I guess that probably seemed like a good idea. But the only problem is everybody knows it's in education that you can't hold back. You give a test like that, and let's say, you got a class of 300 kids, and let's say, 15 of them or 20 of them fail. You can't hold back 15, 20 kids in every grade that you have and that just doesn't work. It's not going to help the kid. It's not going to have a positive impact on the kid. It's like, well, let's teach them that they can't, if they fail, well, that's when you get in high school, they start learning that lesson. But the bottom line is you take a third grader, and some of them, it helps to keep them back, but they're not going to get held back. They're just not going to. Schools don't do that. The parents don't like that. It doesn't benefit. It doesn't work like everybody thinks it works. So that was the first thing they tried to do. And now, they started thinking, well, let's hold the school districts accountable, So it became a big deal, for the school districts to make sure everybody passes these tests and all that. But that didn't have a good enough impact. So then they said, well, let's start making the teachers' job rating dependent on it. And, that seems like a good idea. Well, if your kids you could be the worst teacher in the world and your kids do horrible on that test. And, well, good. That means we can fire them because we have proof that they're not teaching. But that doesn't work that way either. What ends up happening is you spend 3 or 4 years putting them on a professional development plan and trying to help them to correct the things that they're doing wrong. And no matter how bad they are, it takes forever to fire them, and it takes a huge amount of work and a huge amount of documentation, and then they can get a lawyer and dispute it. No, I mean, it's just it's a real struggle. So that doesn't really work like everybody thinks it does. Like you can't just fire the teacher because they're doing a bad job, believe it or not. And then they started making it where, well, let's hold the school accountable. Like we'll give the school a grade, and if the school performs badly, then we can do this to the school and that kind of stuff. And that sounds like a good idea too, but the state knows that if you have a whole bunch of schools that are performing badly, you can't just shut them down. You can't, there's issues with that. It just does not work like everybody thought. that it would. It's very difficult to get the performance that they want to get. It's improved, through the course of all this stuff. I mean, I think it's better, and kids do learn more than they probably learned in the past because of this accountability. But here's the problem to me. I said at the beginning, school is really, the reason kids go to school is to learn. You can't get away from the testing, like I said, because that's part of education. But they're in school for 180 days. And between the state test and the local district test and the various national tests that they give, I would not be afraid to say that students and teachers lose at least 10 to as much as probably 20 days due to testing, due to getting ready for the test, due to having their schedule changed because of testing, due to testing. Now, if you lose 15 days out of 180 days of teaching, here's my thing with testing, and this is the only test I think we should give. If you give a test that matters to the kids, if you give a test that matters to the parents, if you give a test that matters to the teacher, and if you give a test that matters to the district and the state and the federal government, that's a good test. If you are giving a test that does not matter to one of those groups, you're wasting your time. You're not getting a real indication of how well people learned. Like if you give a test, like they used to give us tests to give the students called benchmark tests. And the benchmark test was so that the school district would know how much the kids learned. And there were 3 tests, and you would give one at the beginning of the class, and it would say, that they didn't know anything. I knew they didn't know anything about U.S. history because they've never had U.S. history. And I could tell you how much they know. I'm a teacher. I've been doing it for 20 years. I think I know how much they know about U.S. history. But anyway, they give them a test at the beginning to see how much they know. Then they give them a test halfway through the semester and sees how much they've learned at that point. Then they gave a test at the end of the semester to see how much they had learned at that point. None of the tests counted. The student did not get a single grade. So when you passed that test out and took your class period for that student to take that test, and the student says, "Does this count? Do I get a grade?" and you say no, that test does not matter to the student. You just wasted your time. If it is a test that matters to all those groups, that is a test that you should give. That is a legitimate test that's worth taking the time to do. But there is no excuse, in my opinion, for taking 15 to 20 days out of a student's education to test, to prove to somebody else that the teacher is teaching, or to prove to everybody else. Let the teachers in the school determine whether or not they're learning. And then if you want to give a test, keep it down. I mean, good night. We swamp these kids with tests. It is just, you wouldn't believe it. You would not believe how much time they spend. So that used to really drive me crazy. Like if you take a test like the SAT, okay, the SAT matters to the parent because you have to pay for it, and we want you to do well. And this is a college entrance exam, so you need to do well on it to get into college. So it matters to the parent. It matters to the student because they know if I don't score high enough on the SAT, I can't get into college. It matters to the high school because they know that this is a reflection on their school. This is data that could show that they're doing a good job or show that they're doing a poor job on the SAT. It compares it to other states all across the nation. It matters to the federal government. It matters to the state. It matters to everybody. That is an exam that is worth giving because it matters to all those groups. So think about that when you're giving a test. If you're a teacher, or you're taking a test and you're a student, does that test matter to you? If it does not, we're doing something wrong. So, have a good day, Nichols Retirement Empire. Enjoy your testing season, and it is a season. 3 weeks of testing. The school that I was at last year, we gave tests for 3 weeks straight. 3 weeks out of your calendar, messing up your calendar, so that's the way it is now. You guys have a good day. Nichols Retirement Empire.